sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
Shabbat Shalom, Boker Tov. Welcome, everyone. I'm Stephanie Bernstein, one of the rabbis here at Temple Road of Shalom. I'm here with Cantor Rachel Rhodes, and we're so delighted that you are all here with us for Shabbat and to celebrate this wonderful day on which Dylan will be called to the Torah for the first time as a Bat Mitzvah. Just a couple of announcements before we continue, and I don't know when I'm going to tire of saying this, but please turn off your cell phones. And the reason that I'm happy to say it is before we could have people in the sanctuary during COVID, we didn't say that. So asking you to turn off your cell phones means that people are here and they have cell phones. And so please turn off your cell phones. And we do record each service, so if you want to go back and look at the service later, you can. And we ask that you do not take any photographs during the service. And we also ask that you please keep your masks on when you're in the building. We appreciate that very much. We do really encourage participation, following along in the prayer book and joining us in prayer and song. And you'll see that the prayer book is in front of you, Mishkan Tefillah, on the back of the seat in front of you, so we invite you to take that out. And we will announce page numbers so that you know where we are during the service. And Cantor Rhodes will tell those who are watching on our live stream, and we welcome you as well, how they can access the prayer book.
So just right above where you're watching, hello everyone, on the live stream, you can find a link to the prayer book. It's a flip book. You can type in the numbers and join us. As I'm sure you know, we're going to be doing a lot of singing and praying here together in the sanctuary. Dylan will be leading us in prayers, and we hope that you'll join together with us at home.
Absolutely. And we know that for so many people here and for people watching on the stream, this is a day of hearts that are overflowing with joy and with blessings, the blessing of seeing Dylan called to the Torah. And there are two people whose hearts are really, really overflowing, Andrew and Amanda. And we invite them to stand now with Dylan so that they can give her their private blessing.
Land that I will show you, Lech Lecha, to a place you do not know. Lechi Lach, on your journey I will bless you. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi Lach.
We continue with our service now on page 195. I invite you to please rise for the Baruch Hu, our call to worship. So I'm joined by Dylan here to lead this part of our worship service.
Le'or
join me in Yotzer, or if you are comfortable with the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or uvarei hoshech, osei shalom, uvarei hakol. Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha berahamim, uvtuvel mechadesh b'chol yom tamid, ma'aser bereshit. Ma'rabu masacha Adonai, kulam b'chokma asita, ma'ala ha'aretz kinyaneha. Tibarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach masei yadeha, ve'al me'or or, sher asita, yifa'aru ha'selah, or hadash al tzion ta'ir, v'nizkei kulanu merah laro, baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. Our service continues on page 198 with the first paragraph of the Ahava Rabbah. Please join me. Ahava Rabbah Ahavtanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hem Lagidol Aviv Hamalta Aleinu, Bavur Avotenu, Ve'imotenu, Shabbat Veha, Bat Lamdim Kukei Haim, Kentehonenu Ulamdenu, Hamrahem, Rahim Aleinu, Betain Beli Beinu Lehavin, Ulehaskil, Lishmala, Liomod Ulamed, Lishmor Vala Aso Ulakaye, Ekod Dibre Tamu Torateha, Be'ahava. We continue in English responsibly on the next page. O God, inspiration and guide for all, you've spoken in 1,000 tongues for us to hear, in every land and every age. Your children have heard you and imagined you in separate ways. And yet, O God, you are one, unifier of humanity. We give thanks for the sages and teachers who bring us understanding of your will. Gratefully, we recall the lawgivers and prophets, the psalmists and sages of Israel. And joyfully, we remember from dawn of Israel's life, we would turn to you and find purpose. May the teachings of our ancestors live in our minds and their passion for righteousness stir in our hearts. Help us to live so that our daily conduct reveals the beauty and wisdom of your truth. Baruch atah Adonai, haboher ve'amo Yisrael, be'ahava.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. Please join me as we chant Ve'ahavta together on page 201. Ve'ahavta Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'chayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anohi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha b'dibartam bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvleftecha vadera ukshochbecha ukumecha ukshartam le'o al yadecha v'chayu letotafo ben einecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvish avecha leman tizkeru va'asitem ekol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim lelohehem. Ani Adonai Elohehem, asher hotzeitem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lehiyot lahem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohehem. Please join me in the English. Love Adonai your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you're tired or you're rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. Page 203. Sing the song of men and women, joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
We continue on page 205 with Tefillah, the Amidah, the prayer that connects us to our ancestors. And I invite you to rise if you are able to do so, page 205.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, ve'Konei Hakol, ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot ve'Imahot, u'mevii geula livnei v'neihem, leman shemo be'ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol, atah rav lehoshia, morid hatah. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofech holim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Micha mocha bal givurot, umido melach, melech meimid umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'neheman atah le'achayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol.
We continue with Kedusha, page 208.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, כבודו. אדיר, אדירנו, אדוני, אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהייך ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
To all generations we will make known your greatness, and to all eternity proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O God, shall never depart from our lips. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Please be seated. We continue on page 211. The meaning of Shabbat is to celebrate time rather than space. 6 days a week, we live under the tyranny of things of space. On Shabbat, we try to become attuned to the holiness in time. It is a day on which we are called to share in what is eternal in time, to turn from the results of creation to the mystery of creation, from the world of creation to the creation of the world. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We continue on page 212. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ba'amcha Yisrael. On this Shabbat day, as you graciously receive our prayers, help us to hear your call. Grant us enough health to fulfill our duties and the compassion that we need to attend to others. Teach us humility that we may perceive our own faults, and grant us the wisdom to be forgiving of others. Give us the courage to be true to our highest selves, and the charity to see the best in those around us. Give us patience enough not to become discouraged, hope enough to overcome all fears for the future, and faith enough to know your presence. O source of blessing, look with favor upon us, and may our offerings be acceptable to you. Baruch atah Adonai she'otacha levadacha b'yirah na'avod. We praise you, O God, whom alone we serve in reverence. On page 214, there is a beautiful interpretation beginning at the bottom of the page of the prayer Modim Anachnu Lach, which comes towards the end of the Amidah. And it's a prayer in which we express our gratitude to God for the blessings that have been bestowed upon us, which are so numerous that we could not even possibly count them. And it's a responsive reading. You'll catch on quickly. The phrase is Modim Anachnu Lach, which means that we could not possibly thank you enough. Page 214. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations. Modim anachnu lach. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons, modim anachnu lach. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements, modim anachnu lach. For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness that transcends all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression, modim anachnu lach. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared, modim anachnu lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom, modim anachnu lach. For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose, modim anachnu lach. Please join me in the English. We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulcha na'eh lahodot. We continue on page 216 with our prayer for peace, Sim Shalom.
Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim. V'rachamim. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. We continue now with a moment of our own silent prayer and meditation.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. It's a wonderful morning to be together, to celebrate Shabbat, but also so much to celebrate Dylan and all that she has come to be in this moment of Jewish young adulthood. We're so thrilled all of you are here to witness this moment in her life in which she officially becomes a Bat Mitzvah and takes on this new mantle of leadership in our congregation. Dylan, already you've led us so beautifully today in worship, and we can't wait to hear you chant from the Torah and teach us through the words of your speech. This is really a wonderful moment for her family, for all of you gathered here, and for our congregation. We know, like Rabbi Bernstein said at the beginning of the service, that Dylan would not have gotten to this moment without her incredible family, of course, her parents and her brother, but also her grandparents. And I'm really honored to wish a mazel tov to all 6 of them. As I've said to Dylan, she has a plethora of grandparents. It's such a wonderful thing to have in her life. I know you've all supported and guided and loved her as she's become a young adult today and are so proud of her as well. So it's my honor to wish mazel tov to Michael and Barbara Agetstein, to Andrea Gralnick and Bill Gralnick, and Mel Masovitz and Phyllis Hotchkiss. Mazel tov to all of you. I'd like to invite the grandparents to join us up on the bima. We'll pass the Torah down through the generations into Dylan's arms. I invite everyone in the congregation to please rise as we turn to our Torah service.
Dylan, as you receive this Torah, remember its teachings, its wisdom, and its history. Let it guide you this day and all days. As you embrace it, so may you embrace what it has meant for the Jewish people over the generations. Judaism is history and hope, learning and laughter. We pray that the story of the Jewish people continues brightly with you as you grow as a person and as a Jew. May you embrace the Torah your whole life.
We continue together with the words of Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol Shemo, God Elul Adonai iti, uleromema shemo yachdav, lecha Please be seated.
The Torah portion for this Shabbat that I will be reading is called Hukat. It comes from the book of Numbers, and my Hebrew reading begins with chapter 20, verse 1. In this portion, the Israelites are angry that they don't have enough water to drink. God instructs Moses and Aaron to bring water to them. Moses and Aaron, who are angry at these people they call rebels, take a rod and strike the rock twice. The rock yields water, but God humiliates Moses and Aaron in front of the people, saying, Because of your anger at the people and your lack of trust in me, you shall not lead the Israelites into the land that I have given them.
For Dylan's reading this morning, if you'd like to follow along in the Torah books that are in front of your seat, you can find the page 1026 is where her reading can be found. For the first Aliyah this morning for Dylan's reading, it's an honor to call up her uncle Maury Masovitz and her aunt Erin Liebman. Yamdu l'Aliyah Torah.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayavo'u b'nei Yisrael kol ha'edah midbartzim b'hodesh harishon vayeshev ha'am b'kadesh v'tamal sham Miriam v'tikaver sham v'lo ahaya mayim la'edah v'yikachalu al Moshe v'al Aharon v'yerach ha'am Imoshe vayomeru lemor velu gavanu bigva ahinu lifnei Adonai velamam havetem et kahal Adonai el had mibar hazeh lamu sham anachnu uv irenu velamam ha'elitunu mi Mitzrayim lehavin otanu el hamakom hara hazeh Lo mekom zera u'ena v'gefen v'rimon u'mayim ayin lishto.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayei olam nataf b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Koach, beautiful job. For the second Aliyah for Dylan's reading, it's an honor to invite up her aunt, Julie Edelson, and her family friend, Victoria Kalfas. Tamona l'Aliyah Torah.
Oh, you brought your, oh, and it's even laminated. I'm so impressed. Whenever you're ready.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayavo Moshe v'Aharon mipenei hakahal el petach ohel moed vayipelu al pneihem vayirah kavod Adonai alehem vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor ka et hamatem v'hahel et ha'edah Ata v'Aharon ahiha v'dibartem el hasela le'eneihem v'natan mehmov v'hotzeta lehemayim min hasela v'hishikita et ha'edah be'et be'iram.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natah b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Koach, Julie and Victoria, thank you so much. For the third Aliyah, Dylan, it's such an honor and privilege to call you up for the very first time as Bat Mitzvah. Tamod, 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 habachura habat mitzvah, Dina Leah bat Chana Leah v'Moshe la'Aliyah Torah chazak.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayikra Moshe et Hamatev melifnei Adonai ka'asher tzivahu vayakilu Moshe v'Charon et hakahal al panei hasala vayomer lahem shim'una hamorim hamin hasela hazeh notzi lahem maim vayarem Moshe et yado vayach et hasela b'matehu pa'amayim vayetzeu mayim rabim v'atesh ha'eda uviram. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Wow,
Beautiful.
Dylan, beautiful job. Yashar koach, we say. Mazel tov, excellent work today. It's beautiful chanting.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite up Henry to join us up on the bima to dress the Torah. We continue together on page 252. Please rise. We continue with the words of Eitz Chaim as we return the Torah to the ark. Eitz Chaim, lamachazikim ba, v'tomcheha,
Please be seated. Dylan, I am so excited for you to share what you've learned from the Torah portion with everyone.
As I mentioned before, my Torah portion describes what happened when the Israelites had to escape Egypt where they have been slaves. They followed Moses in order to get out of Egypt, and they were following Moses to the Promised Land. There was no food and water in the wilderness. The Israelites told Moses they were hungry and thirsty, saying, "Why have you brought Adonai's congregation into this wilderness for us and our beasts to die there?" Moses then strikes a rock with his rod, and out comes water, giving water to the Israelites. My Torah portion was meaningful to me because I felt it connected to current-day events. My Torah portion reminded me of people fleeing Central America as immigrants coming to America for a better life, having to walk through long distances, hungry and thirsty. As Jews, we are taught that we are a minority and have faced discrimination in our past, and that we need to help others in our community who are facing similar issues today. As my mitzvah project, I chose to give back to the community by helping to staff a food drive at a local church for the Arlington Food Assistance Center. I chose this because my neighbor is the pastor at a local church near my house, and she mentioned one day that a food drive was being held, and I asked if I could help. I sat outside the church from 1 to 3 p.m. once a month during COVID. People drove up in their cars, they would open their trunks, and I would take the food from people's cars into the church, and I'd put it on a table. A truck would then come pick up the food that people had donated. The food was taken to a warehouse where people whose income wasn't enough to buy food or homeless people could shop for food. Staffing a food drive was meaningful to me because there are still people who are hungry in our society. With everything going on in the world, we need to remember that there are many people without access to food. This is important because some people, including us, are in stable places of our lives, and we can and should help those who are less fortunate than us. I learned that it's good to volunteer locally. When you volunteer locally, you know that you are helping your own community. I recognize there are lots of people who've helped me become who I am today. I would first like to thank my Hebrew tutor, Mrs. Heller, for helping me learn Hebrew. I would also like to thank my parents for practicing with me and my brother for putting up with us talking about the Bat Mitzvah a lot. I would like to thank Pastor Lynn for helping me with my mitzvah project at the church and the rest of 39th Street and my friends for supporting me along the way. Lastly, I would like to thank Temple Road of Shalom for my Jewish education since I've been going here since I was 3 years old until today. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Wow, Dylan, big sigh of relief, or 2 or 3, right? You did such an amazing job of leading us in worship, beautiful job of chanting Torah, and I loved what you taught us from the Torah portion. You worked so hard to get to today, and you were incredibly confident and ready, and it was just such a joy to see you lead us in worship today. And you taught us what many people say is the essence of the Torah, which is because we were slaves in Egypt, that we need to have a special understanding for those people who are vulnerable. And I loved also your insight that there are some people who are in a stable place in life and some people who are not. And we know from the pandemic that there are many people who, for the very first time in their lives, had to go to food banks like the one at your church because they had been in a stable place, or the church in your neighborhood, that they had been in a stable place in their lives, and the pandemic knocked them from that stable place. So thank you for reminding us of this. Also, the lesson you taught about helping our local communities. I think writing a check is wonderful, but there's nothing like actually being there in the community through your neighbor who is the pastor at the church and seeing the need that there is in the community, and that you did this on an ongoing basis. This wasn't just a one-time thing. So I wanted to add just a little bit to the wonderful Torah that you taught us today. And you mentioned, it's actually mentioned in your Torah portion. It's the very first verse, which a lot of us, I think, sort of skip over and we don't really notice. It's before the people start complaining, and it is pointed out that Miriam dies. So Miriam is Moses and Aaron's sister, and in that first verse that you chanted, the very first one, she dies and she's buried. And then immediately it goes to the incident of Moses striking the rock, and we don't hear anything at all about what is done to mourn for Miriam. I mean, she's a very significant leader of the people on this journey, through the wilderness. In the same Torah portion, just a couple of verses later, after you stopped reading actually, Aaron dies, and we're told in elaborate detail that the people mourn for him for 30 days. But Miriam, there's no mourning ritual for Miriam. So this made me wonder how Moses might have reacted to the fact that his sister died. How might he have felt? And there's a little bit of a clue in Moses' words to the Israelites before he strikes the rock, which you also chanted beautifully. He says in English, "Listen, you rebels." And in Hebrew, the letters for the word rebels are actually, without the vowels, exactly the same as the letters in Miriam's name. So I wonder, and I think other people have wondered too, if part of Moses' behavior in striking the rock, which was really resulted in him not being able to go into the promised land, had a lot to do with the death of his beloved sister and the fact that he had not been able to mourn for her. So what can we take from this? I wanted to add to the importance that you place, Dylan, on the empathy that we have to show for those who are not in a stable place in their lives as we are. I'm going to add to that an empathy for what people might have going on inside that we don't see, and maybe contributes to them being cranky or whatever it happens to be. And we may not be able to know that. We may not be able to see that. So in our day-to-day lives, when people are behaving in not the best possible way, when they're impatient or irritable, I want to invite us to consider that maybe they've experienced something in their life, something that happened to them, maybe even that day. and wondering if we can, you know the expression, cut them a little slack? Maybe we can cut people a little bit of slack because we don't know what's going on inside them. So, of course, there's laughter, okay. From Henry, I bet, right? Okay, how did I know? So there's a Jewish idea about this and a term called rachamim, which means compassion or mercy. And when I was a little girl, so here's a true confession, can't leave this room, I was, a little bit impatient with a relative who was often cranky, and it made it hard for me to really like this relative. And I said something to my grandmother, and she said, Stephanie, she used the Yiddish word, you need to have rachmanis, which is the same as rachamim, for this relative who, without going into detail, my grandma told me about some of the challenges that this relative had in her life. So that was a really important lesson for me, and it really stuck with me. So the next time somebody's impatient with us, or when you start to drive, when somebody cuts you off in traffic, I invite us to consider the possibility that maybe the actions of these folks have been affected by something that has happened to them. So this word, rachamim, comes from the Hebrew word for womb, which is the ultimate place of nurturing and of love. And it's actually the first word that's used to describe God. In Exodus, Adonai is a God compassionate and gracious. And, in your Torah portion, maybe God even fell short here, because God didn't understand maybe that Moses was deeply grieving his sister Miriam, and he didn't have a chance to do that. And right away, God said, okay, you're not going into the promised land. So if even God has trouble sometimes recognizing that, we who are mere human beings certainly do. So it's a challenge for us also. And as we show compassion, rachamim, to others, as you demonstrated, Dylan, we certainly can all show more compassion, more understanding for people to know what might be going on inside of them and to cut them a little slack. Now, I'm not suggesting that we ignore behavior that crosses the line, that is dangerous or abusive. I'm not suggesting that, but just that we give others the benefit of the doubt. Parents, siblings, Henry, I'm talking to you, or about you, teachers, maybe even strangers in public. And to live in this way builds on the wonderful compassion, rachamim, Dylan, that you have for those in our community who are not in a stable place. And your ability to identify with them, to take that wonderful lesson from the Torah that we need to be on the lookout for those who are living in a vulnerable place. And to live in this way, as you taught us, Dylan, is not only the right thing to do, it's a blessing. So as you have blessed us today with your beautiful leading of our service, with your teaching us Torah, Cantor Rhodes and I would like to give you our blessing, and we want to invite your mom and dad and Henry to join us here on the bima, and to invite all of you to rise.
Yivarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
Dylan, may God bless you and keep you.
Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
Dylan, may God's light always shine on you and be gracious to you and compassionate.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'asem lecha shalom, shalom.
Dylan, may God's face always be turned to you, giving you a sense of wholeness and of peace. Amen.
Take taking your place in an enduring line. This is the day that you stood up to say our tradition is mine. You have now held the Torah. It's been passed on to you. It's our law and our story, and each telling is new. It is said we stood at Sinai, and today you know you're there. You're the promise of a people, a blessing and a prayer. We remain standing and continue with Aleinu L'Shabeach. You can find the words on page 282. Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol, L'Tet Gedula Leotzer Breshit, Shehu Noteh Shamayim Ve'oseh Haaretz, Umoshav Yikaro B'Shamayim Imal, Ushchinatu Zo B'Govei Meromim, Hu Eloheinu Einod, V'anachnu Koreim, Umishtachavim Umodim, Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'nemar V'haya Adonai L'melech HaKol Haaretz, Bayom Hahu, Bayom Hahu, Yeh Adonai Echad, U'Shemo, U'Shemo, U'Shemo Echad. Please be seated.
Our thoughts turn now to our family members, to our friends who are no longer living. And I know that each one of us here today has people who helped to make us the folks that we are today, who taught us, who led us by example, who really lit up our lives. And I ask each of us to just take a moment to think of perhaps one of those people who helped to make you the person that you are today. We continue with the Mourner's Kaddish, which is on page 294. Please rise. Page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, b'alma divra chirhute v'yamlich malhute, b'chayechon v'yomechon, u'v'chaye d'kol Beit Yisrael, ba'agola u'vizman kori v'imru. Amen. Yehe shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudisha brichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiram v'ama v'imru. Amen. Yehe shalama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. Zichronam livracha, may the memories of all of our loved ones always be for blessing. Please be seated. It's now my pleasure to invite a member of our Board of Trustees here at Temple Road of Shalom and the soon-to-be immediate past president of the Woders, Women of Temple Road of Shalom, Lisa Kasdan, to give some words of welcome and greetings to you all, and most importantly, some gifts to Dylan.
Good morning, Shabbat Shalom.
It's a joy to be here today with you all, and so happy that you were able to experience this occasion in person and safely. So, mazel tov to everyone. We have some gifts for Dylan from the congregation. Mazel tov, you did an amazing job. Let me put my mask back on. I don't want you to be on. We have a beautiful certificate with your name on it, designed by a member of our congregation, and this you'll always have to remember this occasion. From the women of TRS, we have the home prayer book that we hope that you will use for your whole life when you have your own family, hopefully. And a beautiful Kiddush cup from our clergy that we hope you will use. And we have 2 gift certificates. One is from NIFTY, which is the National Federation of Temple Youth, which we hope you'll get involved with. My daughters have loved NIFTY, and it's a great way to travel the country and meet other Jewish kids. And the gift certificate is for travel in Israel in your high school years. And we also have a nice gift certificate from our youth committee. So happy for you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and mazel tov.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And we have a closing song.
Yes, so we'll conclude today on page 322 with the words of Ein Keloheinu. I invite you to please join me. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michemalkeinu, Mikemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Emalkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Adonai Oz la'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. May God give strength to all of us and bless us all with peace. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.